Your time is up.
Yeah. Assalamualaikum and warm welcome to both house teams, Hulubalang and Panglima, teachers, and fellow students of Math of Science. Welcome to this mixed team English debate between students of the respective sports houses. I am the chairperson for this afternoon event, and my name is Tayang Claudia Carvalina. Timekeeping today is Nornawara, and we also have a group of student adjudicators who will determine the best speakers for each of the two teams. The adjudicators are Sir Justin, Akila binti Rosli, and Nashira Rahman. The motion for today's debate is that this House believes that teachers should lead assemblies. Ladies and gentlemen, to my left, the government affirmative team will argue for the motion that this House believes that teachers should lead assemblies. And to my right, the opposition team, who will argue against the motion and the proposition team's arguments. The guidelines for speakers are as follows. Each speaker will speak for a maximum of 5 minutes to develop his or her team's case. A single bell will sound after 1 minute to signal the opponents that point of information may be asked. These may be accepted or rejected by the speaker. A second single bell will ring after 4 minutes to signal no further points of information may be asked. A final third bell will sound after 5 minutes to signal a speaker to finish their sentence, conclude their speech, and resume their seat. A continuous bell will sound after 5 minutes and 15 seconds if the speaker is still speaking. After the conclusion of each team's speakers' substantive speeches, any of the first three speakers' teams decide, beginning with the opposition, will deliver a final reply speech of 4 minutes duration. A single bell will sound after 3 minutes to signal a remaining minute left to speak, followed by a double bell at 4 minutes, at which time the speaker should finish his or her sentence, conclude their speech, and resume to their seats. No points of information may be offered during the reply speeches. Speakers on both teams are reminded that points of information must be relevant to what the speaker is talking about at the time of asking, and that badgering or repeated frequent requests of POI are not acceptable. POIs should take no longer than 10 seconds to ask. Ladies and gentlemen, we would ask you to show due respect and courtesy of the speakers involved in today's debate, and for the protocols of this occasion, listen attentively as they speak, but be generous with suitable applause and laughter in response to their effort and any humor they on the board to stimulate. On that note, can I ask you to practice your applause? Thank you. And now, to commence today's debate of the motion, this House believes that teachers should lead assemblies. I call upon, and please give a warm round of applause for this speaker proposition, Dayantu Sabrina, to begin her team's case.
Good afternoon, respected adjudicators, our formidable opponents, and the lovely audience. Today, we will affirm today's motion, which is this House believes that teachers should lead assemblies. Before we begin, I, as the first speaker, will define the key terms of the motion, which consequently will determine the scope of our argument. The first key term is lead, which is be in charge or command of something or organize and direct. And assembly, which is a group of people gathering together in one place for a common purpose. Now, I will outline the government's case. I, as the first speaker, will talk about how are more experienced and knowledgeable. And the second speaker will talk about how teachers should lead assemblies because they can effectively teach students by being positive role models for the students, as well as how teachers can benefit from leading assemblies as they can grow the feedback received from assemblies. Our third speaker will not introduce any new points, but will instead reiterate the previous case as well as rebut any and all opposite arguments. And now I'll begin my quotes. This house believes that teachers should lead assemblies because they are more experienced and knowledgeable. Teachers are trained to relay information with clear voice production and to catch attention of all students. So teachers, for example, they've been trained almost their whole life since they were, our age up until their
information.
Yeah.
What's the difference between teaching in the assembly and in school?
I'm sorry, has the bell rung?
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
What's the difference should I repeat?
Yeah.
What's the difference between teaching in the assembly and teaching in the classroom?
Teaching in the classroom and teaching in assembly has many resemblances. For example, teaching in assembly and teaching in the classroom both have to relay information and in some cases tell stories. For example, a history teacher will have to tell stories, and a teacher in an assembly and in class both have to engage with the students, which is the resemblance.
So you're saying it's the same, yes?
No follow-up.
The second point is teachers are more authorized, so students will listen to them more compared to their other peers. So we have been taught since we were children to respect people who are more authorized than us, and teachers are one of those people. So students will more likely be inclined to listen to their teachers when compared to their peers. So other than that, when students are leading the assembly, they may lack confidence and they may be jittery or inaudible because students tend to get more nervous than teachers are because teachers have more experience than students. So students and other students will not be inclined to listen to the student speaking in front of them if they are mumbling, or maybe like if they're inaudible, the other students can't listen to the information given. So other than that, assembly is often the point of assembly is to keep students updated and to reward students and appoint new position, etc. And teachers are more updated with current events than students are because students are mostly told about updates last minute. So other than that, students are also told to in assemblies. Students are also told to share info or stories that they're not familiar with, and they have to do independent research, which is good. But there is the risk of them not understanding what they're learning or what they're writing down, and often it will be more of a copy-paste process than it is learning. So the speech will be ineffective and rather empty. While if a teacher was telling it, for example, it was a speech about Brunei economics. So if it's like in our school, for example, we have 3 MLs. So teachers, if teachers were asked to inform a story about the Brunei economics, an economic teacher would know what to say, while a student can know so much about economics, but it would never, it wouldn't compare to the knowledge that the teacher knows. So yeah, with that, hence this motion will must and should stand. Thank you very much.
please, for the first speaker opposition in 1 month, he will respond and demonstrate his case.
Thank you, my dear opponents. Now, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, we as a opposition team disagree with this proposition as we have some problems with that. Now, about that statement of yours that teachers have more experience, sure, that's a fact. But what about our dear students? They need experience too, right? Yes, of course, they could do that in the class. They could get experience in public speaking class, but they need a larger audience than that. Because in the class, they are close with those people, but in a large assembly hall, they would need to be more brave to speak up. Okay, the main reason this assembly is to get students to speak up. Speak up as in learn to public speak. Break out of their shells, speak to 1,000 of strangers they don't know, and learn new communication skills. Other than that, they will have to know what to research about on the topic, since our school usually does that, right? Students have to lead the assemblies for all those years. And this will encourage teamwork, because when organizing that assembly together with other students. And this will also prepare them for their adult lives of public speaking with work. Because of that, by right, when teachers are the one who conduct this assembly, this will take away all those opportunities from those students. Students should be more involved with the running of the school day, so that they would feel more valued to take that responsibility of starting the school's day. They would be more motivated to start their day with full energy and be ready to learn anything.
POI, is the proposition team implying that without assemblies, students wouldn't be encouraged or excited to learn without it?
No. Because the students will be able. I'm sorry, what was your
My question was, is the proposition team implying that without assemblies, students wouldn't feel excited to learn?
Yes, because usually in the morning you just go to class and that's it. You don't really expect much, and there's not really that much information running around. So, anyways. Students, when they read the assemblies, they will be more energized to work, because the underlying in their body will give them need to if the students will be more involved with their assemblies, they will be more confident in public speaking. And especially public speaking is important for their lives at work. What if they become the minister and they have to talk to millions of people? They cannot be scared and stutter when they speak, right? And what if they want to propose something to the public? They have to gain their agreements and disagreements. They have to persuade them to accept their topic. And with that, they need to learn how to public speak. And with that, the assemblies will help them to learn how to public speak. Especially in universities. Who knows what will happen in universities? University is a state where the students will be in the university, the students will get to know what it's like in the adult life. So with that, the assembly will give the students more experience in what to expect in a public speaking environment. In conclusion, The assembly should be conducted by the students in order to help them in getting more experience in public speaking. That's my case.
Thank you, Rizwana. I now call upon the second speaker, proposition, to continue her team's case.
A very good afternoon, everyone. Before I deliver my case, I would like to rebut the opposition's points, the first speaker of the opposition's points. Firstly, she talked about how teachers are more experienced and how students, students should also acquire experiences, right? And one of them is by assemblies. But we disagree because assembly is only a small part of the school's, of a student's life, of a student's curricular. There are other things that students can join, such as debate club. Are you saying that only by assembly are we able to get the opportunity to learn? Because as you say, as I quote you, the first speaker of the proposition, the assemblies, hold on. You said that assembly is the only opportunity for students, but you did mention it in your speech. So are you implying that there are no other opportunities for students, such as debate club, where they can again also improve their public speaking skills? Is it just limited to assemblies? Moving on, you said that rejected. You also said that students are also more energized when they deliver a speech during an assembly. But we disagree, because how do you know that? How do you measure that a student is excited? How do you know they're not feeling anxious? How do you know they're not nervous? Because they've never talked to a large audience, as you said, because you said that we're so used to a small classroom, right? Also, about researching, independent learning, it's good, we all know, but take our school assembly as an example, the 3ML speech. Only the person speaking is doing the research. So what about the 20 other classmates? Only that one student speaking is gaining something from it, yes?
What makes you say that the other students don't help with the information?
Because you see, in the assembly itself, they're not conscious of what they're saying as well. Like for example, they're just reciting their articles. We see that a lot now in our own
Follow-up question? They can
No,
ask.
rejected. Sorry. Moving on, I will now deliver my other opposition's case. Firstly, teachers should lead assemblies as they can effectively teach students by being positive role models for the students. When teachers lead assemblies, they take the chance to inspire students. They make sure that assemblies are giving out beneficial lessons for students. For example, conducting some personal talks about life experiences where they share their most memorable life experiences, such as funny anecdotes they had in college or their failures, regrets that can inspire students to become better versions of themselves. Because that's not by talking to a large audience, that's not the only way you can grow yourself. You can take others' experiences and implement that to yourself, and that's another way you can grow. It's not just limited to talking in front of an audience, ladies and gentlemen. Secondly, in this way, the students can relate to their teachers as well, so it builds a personal connection to the teachers. You feel much, much more closer and inspired to succeed in life. Secondly, I want to talk about how teachers can benefit from leading assemblies as they can grow, as they can also grow. Teachers are experienced, yes, but there's always room for improvement. Whether you're a CEO of a business, there's always room to improve yourself, and that relates to teachers as well. Teachers are humans who are still learning, developing their own skills through their life experiences. So hearing feedbacks from their performance, from leading an assembly, or like on a talk when conducting activities during assembly, actually help them further develop their skills, such as working on their intonations or refining their pronunciation. Thirdly, I would like to talk about how by teachers leading assemblies actually lessens the burden of students. As students, we can all relate. We have homework, we have revision to do, especially when exam season is approaching. We have university applications to do. We have extracurricular activities such as debate, maybe the national team, the national sports team. Yes. So students have a lot of things outside of school as well, including afternoon classes or debate competitions, right? So their stress levels will only peak when they have to further prepare for assemblies. So, hence, this motion that this House believes that teachers should lead assemblies will, must, and should stand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Second Speaker of Opposition. I now call upon the Second Speaker Opposition to continue her team's case.
Good afternoon, fellow audience and judges. Before I get into my points, I would like to rebuttal against some of the points that were said on both the speakers. The first one I would like to talk about was the point where only the student who does the speech is the one who is contributing and doing all the research and getting all the benefits. There are so many people who work together to make the assembly happen. There's the MC, there's the flag raisers, there's the people who give out the labels. A lot of teamwork is required to conduct everything in a really smooth flow So I think teamwork is a big part of why assembly should be run by the students. Another point I have that they made, another point that they made was that teachers are the most reliable, they're more reliable and more experienced than students themselves. Now, I have a problem with this statement. If the point of assemblies was to get the most professionally conducted thing or to get the most reliable information, then why have we been doing it this way for so long? Why have we been letting the students lead it for so long? I'm telling you, the reason is so students get the experience, so they can learn to do it themselves, so they're not spoon-fed information, so they learn to find things on their own. If we were to change the system now to the point where teachers are doing it, I would argue that it would be ineffective, because then we'd have to switch everything up, because we're already doing it this way, and if this way works, it means we're doing something right. So, those are the points I'd like to rebut. Another point I have is that, another point that you said is that why should we add stress and burden to the students who already have a lot of work? Don't you think teachers have a lot of work? In the mornings, I hear sometimes from teachers that they don't want to go to assemblies because it's a waste of time. They could be lesson planning, they could be marking, they could be grading papers, but instead they have to prepare for assemblies, which students should do because they don't really have that much work. They have homework, yes, and stuff, but generally, teachers, I would say, their work is far greater than the ones that the students have. So by asking the teachers to conduct assemblies, we're putting more stress, we're putting more burden on them, on something that can easily be conducted by a classroom of students, easily, because that's how we've been doing it, and it's worked for the past ages. It worked for ages. I don't see a reason why we should change it. Okay.
POI?
Yes.
Did the second speaker define how it's worked as far as we're going? Because what can you explain on how it's worked?
I don't see much of a problem as how assemblies are being set up right now. I don't see many difficulties that arise. Because changing it so that teachers are doing it, you have to change the whole system. Changing the whole system requires a lot of effort. So I would stick to the way things are working right now. Another point I'd like to make is that you said that students were more likely to pay attention if it was teachers because they have more authority. I have an argument against that, and I think that students, especially right now, the assemblies, a lot of the topics are related. Like for us, it was Sultans. They're all related. All the classes were related. I would argue that because students are doing it, they're going to pay more attention because they know they're going to eventually have to do it themselves in the next assemblies. Because they know that they're going to have to do that, they're going to pay attention to what the other people are speaking, especially because the topics right now are kind of related. They'll sort of get an idea of how the assemblies work. Another I think I've touched everything that I wanted to talk about. I'm giving rebuttals to my third speaker, who has his own
tell me when you're ready, ladies. I realize you're probably matching things up, but it's very tricky, those questions.
Thank you, second speaker opposition. I now call upon the third speaker proposition to continue the team's case.
Good afternoon, everyone. I, as the third speaker, will jump right into this and first emphasize that this House believes that teachers should lead assemblies, no doubt. Before I go on supporting and reiterating my team's case points, I shall first rebut the opposition team's arguments and rebuttals. The first speaker has, hold on, let me rearrange this. The first speaker has rebutted first, rebutted our point on teachers having more experience and has argued instead that students should be given the chance to acquire experiences during assemblies as they need a larger audience because they're limited to the classroom. Also, they've argued that this is the opportunity, assemblies, when led by students, is the opportunity for them to learn how to public speak, learn to encourage confidence in speaking, prepare for adult life. So there are a lot of points there. However, I'd like to rebut how the POI had been answered by the first speaker of their team, who has explicitly said that without assemblies, students wouldn't be excited to learn because she said there wouldn't be enough information, something along those lines. I don't quite understand how that links to our POI, but be honest, right? I'll give you an example of our own assemblies in month of science. Be truthful. Do they really fill you up with lots of energy? Do you feel excited to learn about life as you hear the principal speak about water and staying hydrated? Be honest. I don't think so, because personally I felt, listening to her speak, I felt like just dreading the whole school day, really. So, well, I just wanted to say that for the rebuttals. Yeah. Just wanted to rebut how they answered our POI. And then moving on, the opposition team's second speaker rebutted by saying that during assemblies, when students lead assemblies, it's where a lot of teamwork is done during assemblies, and we acknowledge that. We acknowledge that we acknowledge that point. Yes, it's not completely wrong. However, we too have a problem with when you said it's been working, student-led assemblies in our school itself has been working for so long. How long, really? We've been doing this for barely 2 years when the principal started to come and she wanted us to do daily assemblies, right? I just wanted to point out the faulty in that information. Also, that is a sweeping statement. We can't measure that. Accepted.
Other schools also have assemblies run by other students, by students.
I'm not referring, I don't think I was referring to any point about speaking about other schools. I just wanted to point out that her example on assemblies working in our school, I remember, is faulty information because we haven't been doing that for so long. Also, the second speaker pointed out that teachers have too much work. I acknowledge this too. We're not going completely against that. However, you're badgering, but I will accept. What is it?
We actually had student-run assemblies since year 7, year 8.
Yes, but I'm talking about how it's made daily and more so now. I believe that even back then, assemblies were not dominated by students leading it, but teachers also had a part. It wasn't 100% independent on students. The second speaker also I wanted to point out was speaking about faulty PA system. There is no faulty and it's been working just fine. She sees no problem. Are you ignoring, however, the fault in our PA system, which is highly affecting our assemblies to the point where assemblies are pretty much ineffective and counterproductive because we can't hear what they're saying? Are you ignoring that faulty? I believe you have. Moving on to amplify our team's case points, let me just look for that. So our first speaker has said that teachers should lead assemblies because they are more knowledgeable and experienced. This is true because, you know, students, as I reiterate, because they're made to do independent research, doesn't matter if it's just one person or the whole class doing independent research, there might be a risk of faulty delivery of info, misinformation, because you cannot argue that teachers know more about life because they have experienced it. They know more about, well, just broad knowledge, you know what I mean? To amplify our second speaker's points about positive role models, with teachers telling personal anecdotes, funny, inspiring stories, teachers can also benefit this because you see, people tend to assume that only the students are susceptible to learning from experience. However, teachers can learn too because they're humans. To finish this, I believe this House believes that this motion should, must, and will stand. Thank you.
Thank you, third speaker proposition. I will now call for the third speaker opposition to continue his team's case.
Honorable members of the jury, absolutely charming timekeeper, esteemed yet cynical members of the proposition, ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a little experiment. Show of hands, who here has ever slept in class? So, as you said just now, there's no difference between teachers speaking in the assembly and teachers speaking in class. So, who's to say the students don't get bored in the assembly and in the assembly if they're bored in class? As the second speaker of the opposition has mentioned, there's no difference between teachers talking in class in the assembly and teachers talking to us in class. So, say the student went and then you said just now that the students wouldn't have enough information, correct? Who's to say the student can't go up to a history teacher maybe if he or she wanted to talk about history? Then they can just ask the teacher for the right information, no? And you talked about faulty equipment. If students have faulty equipment problems, then wouldn't teachers have faulty equipment problems? So, let me sum up the points my first and second speaker said. They want to avoid stress. They want to be able to. They want students to be able to speak. They want the students to be ready for the future, for life in the university. We may not yet know the problem, we may not yet know the answer to this debate, but I hope my points were understood correctly by everyone. Thank you.
At the end. Okay. Just promising he was going in the right direction. What busy. Yeah. No, she didn't. Yeah, I agree. I said it's a fantastic passage of rebuttals, but what's your point?
She should have stopped after 1 minute and let him take it.
Take some. Yeah. It's a pity, isn't it? But he could make some new points. I mean, he could also feed off what they said. I mean, he started quite well. Okay, so I mean that's going to be brutally punished, isn't it? Language 4, I like it. Clarity. I mean, where do I punish this guy? Humour. Some humour even.
Timekeeper, how long do you have left? The room is still on.
That's okay. It's alright. We can talk about it. It's all becomes actually quite subjective regardless of the... Just give us another minute.
Thank you for your speaker opposition. There will now be a brief pause of 3 minutes while teams revise their reply speech materials. I must emphasize that only the first and the second speaker be the reply speaker. Okay. Thanks. We now start.
So sweet. Got your meat. You're so neat. Look at my horror. It is. It's beautifully neat. I'd be happy to put that in my record book and give it to the principal. There's this.
Look at that. I just gave it
Oh,
everywhere.
it's not everywhere at all. Mine's everywhere. It'd be interesting to see if we agree when we start talking about this. Hi. Have you been in the other room?
I just came here.
Be careful what you say, it's being recorded. Might have to talk to Azza about some editing.
I don't know if I'm too nice or too mean.
No, I think you need to be mean. Well, got a minimum of 12. riding on this is the main house rivalry. But I think we're going to see the two houses I know we're going to see in the final. Business, I know. You're brave to try it, but when you sit here, you realise what the judges are doing, and they're sitting there and you're speaking. You also realise, I need to be clear, otherwise I can't follow what I'm saying.
I now call upon a speaker from the opposition team to sum up his or her team's case that any rebuttals that they have of their opponent's case.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to point out some holes in the other team's argument and re-amplify some of our arguments. Now, the only arguments I see from their team is that teachers are more reliable, they're more professional, and that they capture the students' attention better. Those are the only two arguments I see, and I think they're both wrong. The first one, teachers are more reliable and professional. This goes against the very purpose of the assembly, which I think my first speaker has described during her speech, which was that it should teach the students life skills that they necessarily wouldn't engage on normally. Like assembly forces these students to engage in these activities, to public speak when maybe they normally wouldn't. If this wasn't the purpose of assemblies, the school wouldn't have asked students to do it in the first place. Again, if the purpose of the assembly was to be very professional and to get the most reliable information, we would have been using teachers for a long time ago. But instead we've gotten students to do it, which proves the purpose of the assembly. Now the other one, which is teachers capture the attention of the students. I feel that it's in the students, it's what the students should learn to do. The students are the ones the students should be learning to capture the attention of their audience through this public speaking. By getting teachers to do it, it takes away every opportunity a student has to show what they can do, to maybe finally break out of that bubble, because they're just getting spoon-fed by all the teachers, doing everything for them. Another thing that my third speaker was trying to say that I think I want to elaborate on, he was talking about the PA system and the faultiness of it. I think what he was trying to say, I'm going to elaborate on it a bit more, is that any arguments for that, oh, well, our PA system sucks, it's not the students' fault, it's not because the students are conducting the assembly. If the teachers were to conduct the assembly, the PA system would still suck. It's not our fault, that's on the school. The students, because of our assembly, know how to set up the PA system. I wouldn't know how the PA system works if the assembly was never conducted. I didn't know what wire went where, how microphones work. That, I think, is something that the students learn solely from assemblies. Now another point, assemblies, I think it forces students to do this stuff. Because all classes are needed to do it, it makes it so they have to find someone in the class to speak. Someone has to research. Someone has to do the emceeing. You said that you can get all this. People can obtain this experience from things like the debate club or Gavel. But there's so many students who would normally never engage in these activities, and assembly forces them to. I've seen so many faces up there during assembly who I would never expect to speak when they spoke because the class has assigned them to. So that's my argument. That's why I think, that's why we think that assembly should be led by students. Yeah, we're proud to stand on team opposition.
Again, I'm not sure what that comes from this. Who thought debate was about maths?
Thank you, worthy opposition. I now call upon the proposition reply speaker to close out today's debate by summing up their team's case and any rebuttals that they have of their opponent's arguments.
A very good afternoon once again, ladies and gentlemen. As the opposing team has apparently done, we would like to point out the many holes in the opposing team argument. But before that, I would love to reiterate our team's case. Firstly, my first speaker has talked about how teachers are more experienced and knowledgeable, and we have proven and we have provided many different cases on why they are more experienced and knowledgeable and hence should lead assemblies. And secondly, I talked about how teachers should lead assemblies because they can effectively teach students by becoming role models, ladies and gentlemen. And I would love to reinforce the statement because in psychology, ladies and gentlemen, to strengthen our point, in psychology, it is necessary. It is necessary for teachers to be positive role models because there is something called social learning theory in which adolescents, which is us, teenagers, high schoolers, are proven to be susceptible to imitating role models. So when teachers provide stories, funny anecdotes in colleges, like failures, their regrets, we learn from that and we can grow as a better person from simply them sharing their stories during assemblies. And thirdly, I talked about how teachers can benefit from leading assemblies as well. It's not just limited to students growing, improving their public speaking skills, because teachers are also still learning. Yeah, teachers are humans too, ladies and gentlemen. And I also talked about how it lessens the burdens of students. But now moving on to the holes of the opposition's arguments. Firstly, the third speaker of the proposition team has mentioned that we said that teachers during assembly and teachers in classes are doing the same thing. No, we clearly didn't say that. My first speaker said that since he POI'd that, he gave us a point of information. What's the difference between teachers during assemblies and teachers during classes? My first speaker has said that it's similar, hence there's only a resemblance, but not the same, ladies and gentlemen. In class, teachers teach by the syllabus, while during assemblies, teachers give extra information, ladies and gentlemen, which are and can be useful for the students. Secondly, teachers are trained to have clear projection. They're trained and taught to be loud during classes, to teach students, to relay information. So even if the PA system was down, teachers would have a clear voice projections that can be heard by thousands of students, right? Yeah, as compared to students, because that's what the reply speaker has mentioned. Secondly, I'd like to talk about how we acknowledge that teachers have more work, and like by them leading assemblies, we would just add more onto their burdens. I would disagree, because if they were talking about a topic that they choose from their expertise, they would not need any research. They're knowledgeable. That's exactly what we're trying to say here. Because they're knowledgeable, they don't have to do research. They can just talk about, for example, an economics teacher talking about how economics and politics of Brunei will affect Wawasan in 2035. They don't need to do research because they're updated. Yeah. Also, they talked about how teachers are reliable and professional, and how by the students leading assemblies, they can be just that too. But has any study actually shown that students are actually learning from assemblies? Like, you fail to provide sufficient evidence for that. And for those reasons, ladies and gentlemen, the opposition still strongly believe the proposition firmly believes that this House believes that students should lead assemblies, must, will, and should stand. Thank you very much.
How are you giving points to this one?
Oh, don't know. Making it up.
The motion we didn't want.
Okay, we got something there. Let's see if we agree on
Sorry, sir.
It's okay. God, mathematics required.
sir.
No, you're okay. You're confused, don't worry. We'll just go and talk about things. See if we agree though, that's the thing. Tippex away, right. So you go and have a chat next door when you're ready. Right guys, we're just going to disappear for a few minutes. Are you all alright? Yeah? Chat, have fun. You better check that. And very wobbly camera work because my desk is shaking.